everyone, welcome back. We're going to be taking a deep dive today into this really fascinating concept of potential.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all inspired by this chapter I was reading.
Right.
From a book all about the subject. Mm-hmm. And it was a really interesting take on it because it goes so far beyond, like just reaching our own potential.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a part of it.
It is.
But it takes us all the way back. Like all the way back to the source of all potential.
The ultimate origin point.
Yeah, like where does this stuff even come from?
Right.
So the chapter boldly claims that everything that was, or ever will be, comes from a single source.
Mm.
Pretty profound stuff. I mean, where do we even begin with that?
Well, the author starts with this quote that I thought was really helpful.
Okay.
It says, the potential of a thing is related to its source.
Mm.
And that kind of sets the stage for the whole argument, because then they go on to say that the ultimate source of potential is God.
Interesting. So we're not just talking about potential in a general sense here.
No.
We're tying it to a very specific theological framework.
Exactly. And it's not just any concept of God.
Right.
It's God as omnipotent, so all-powerful,
Okay.
potentially everything.
So help me wrap my head around this.
Sure.
If God is this infinite source of potential,
Right.
how does that actually play out? Like, how does that translate into the world that we see around us?
Well, the chapter uses this analogy, and I think it's really helpful.
Okay.
Imagine God standing on nothing, looking at nothing.
Okay.
Because everything that would ever exist was contained within him.
Whoa.
So it's like this cosmic pre-show
Yeah.
before the universe even begins, right? Like
Yeah.
all the stars, the planets, even us, all wrapped up in this one being.
Yeah.
The author calls it the potential principle.
Ooh, that's pretty complex.
It is a little heady.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think what they're getting at is that God isn't just a creator,
Mm-hmm.
but the source of all creative power.
Yeah, like God doesn't just create things. God is the potential for all things to be created.
Exactly.
So that connects to this idea in the book of Genesis, like God is the beginning.
Right.
But are we talking about something even before the beginning?
That's what I love about this chapter, is
Yeah.
like there's a verse 0 of Genesis.
Okay.
In God was the beginning.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. So even the act of creation had to come from somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and that somewhere is God.
Okay, so now I'm really curious about how this infinite well of potential actually transformed,
Right.
into the world that we know.
Mm-hmm.
If everything was contained within God, how did it all come into being?
Yeah. How did the invisible become visible?
Right.
That's where this idea of the Word comes in.
Okay.
That we see in the Gospel of John.
Okay, yeah. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Right.
It's a very mysterious passage to me.
It is.
What's the connection to potential?
Well, this chapter suggests that the Word is how potential manifests.
Okay.
So think about it this way. Everything we see and experience, trees, the oceans, our thoughts and feelings,
Okay.
they all existed first as like a possibility,
Hmm.
an idea within God.
So are we talking about the power of language here? Like God literally spoke the universe into existence?
Well, I think it's a little more nuanced than that.
Okay.
I think the author is using word more as a shorthand
Okay.
for God's intention,
Okay.
God's will being put into action.
Interesting.
So it's like the bridge between the invisible potential
Mm-hmm.
and the visible creation.
I see.
Does that make sense?
It does, but it's still a little abstract for me.
Right.
Is there a way to make this idea of, everything existing within God a bit more concrete?
Well, the chapter uses a pretty surprising example to get this across.
Okay.
The author writes even things like, roaches, mosquitoes, rats,
Uh-huh.
all within God too.
Wow. Okay, so we're not just talking about like the beautiful and inspiring aspects of creation,
Yeah.
but even the things we might find challenging or unpleasant,
Right.
it all comes from the same source.
Precisely. It's really meant to be thought-provoking,
Yeah.
to make us question our assumptions about what it means for everything to originate from this one being.
Okay, so we've got this image now of everything.
Yeah.
From the majestic to the mundane,
Mm-hmm.
existing as pure potential within God.
Mm-hmm.
But how did it all become real?
Right.
How did the Word make the invisible visible?
Well, they use this phrase, God spat them out, poof.
Oh, okay. It's kind of blunt.
Yeah, but it's definitely a memorable image.
It is.
But I'm guessing there's more to it than that.
Right. It's meant to emphasize this idea that God spoke creation into being,
Okay.
that it wasn't passive,
Right.
but this deliberate act of will and power.
So God transformed those invisible possibilities into the tangible world through this act of speaking.
Right.
But I feel like speaking in this context means more than just uttering words.
It does.
Because, the chapter also talks about God putting effort into creation.
You're exactly right.
So what do you think about that idea? Well, I think it's interesting because we often separate, thought from action.
Mm-hmm.
But here, it seems like they're deeply intertwined.
Yeah.
The word isn't just a thought.
Right.
It's thought put into motion, an intention that leads to creation.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it actually connects to something else I was thinking about, too.
Oh, yeah.
This idea that even God being all-powerful needed to rest after creating.
Right.
Like, even for an omnipotent being, creation takes effort. It takes work.
And it really underscores how massive that undertaking was, even for a being with infinite power.
So do you think that idea of God putting effort into creation connects back to us in some way?
I think it does.
How does this relate to our own potential?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Because as the chapter points out, God's creative work isn't finished.
Okay.
And we're part of that ongoing creation.
Hold on, I need a moment to process that.
It's a big idea.
Yeah, we're not just like passive bystanders in this cosmic drama.
No.
We're active participants.
It seems that way.
In creation.
Right.
It's huge.
It is, and it's something we'll explore more deeply as we continue our conversation.
Yeah, let's definitely do that.
Okay.
So, let's dive back into this idea that God's creative work isn't done, and somehow we're like a part of it.
Right.
It's a little hard to grasp.
Yeah.
What does that even mean on a practical level?
Well, the chapter uses this phrase that God is still pregnant with many things.
Whoa. Okay.
It's a little strange at first.
Yeah. Is it meant to be taken literally?
Not in a physical sense, no.
Okay.
It's more about conveying this idea that there's still so much potential within God waiting to be brought into the world.
So it's not that God is finished creating.
Right.
But that creation is like this ongoing process.
Exactly.
And we're somehow involved.
And that's where prayer comes in.
Okay.
Because the chapter suggests that when we pray, it's not just us like sending wishes up to the heavens.
Yeah.
It's more like we're tapping into that infinite potential within God. And through our prayers, God can speak new things into existence.
That's a powerful way to think about prayer.
Yeah.
It's not just asking for things.
Right.
It's like we're partnering with God in this ongoing act of creation.
Exactly.
But if God already contains all potential,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean like we can ask for literally anything?
That's a good question. And that's where it gets a little nuanced.
Okay.
The author suggests that, yes, in a sense, all things do exist within God's potential.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they're all like ready to manifest in the physical world right now.
So it's not like placing an order with Cosmic Amazon Prime.
Right. Exactly.
Expecting instant delivery.
No, it's not like that.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing that the seeds of our dreams, our inventions, solutions to problems, they all already exist within that infinite potential. Our role is to kind of nurture those seeds, help them grow.
I love that because it makes me think about all those times when I've had like a sudden flash of insight and thought, wow, I've never thought of that before.
Right.
But maybe it wasn't entirely new.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just like a connection being made to something that was already out there in that realm of potential.
I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
In fact, the chapter actually mentions this idea that God is constantly leaking ideas into the minds of men and women.
So even those aha moments we have, like where we feel so brilliant and proud of ourselves,
Right.
might actually be us tapping into something much bigger.
Exactly. And that's where the concept of God sharing his omnipotent powers comes in.
Okay.
It's not that we become mini gods or anything like that.
Right.
But we're given access to that creative force, that potential to bring something new into the world.
So we're walking around brimming with possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, it's inspiring, but also a little daunting.
It is.
Like, how do we even begin to tap into all of that?
Well, the chapter circles back to this idea of speaking things into existence.
Yeah.
But remember, speaking here is more than just talking. It's about action, intention, effort.
So just like God didn't create the world by just thinking about it,
Right.
but by actively working it into being, we also have to put in the work
Exactly.
to manifest our own
The
potential.
work is key.
Yeah, think about bringing any idea to life.
Yeah.
It takes planning effort, persistence, sometimes
Absolutely.
sweat and tears.
Right.
That's us like participating in this act of creation, drawing on that divine potential, shaping it into something tangible.
You got it.
It's like we're co-creators in a sense.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
We're not just passive recipients of God's grace.
Right.
We're active partners in this unfolding story.
And I remember that the chapter also mentioned that even God rested after this immense effort of creation.
Yes, he did.
What do you think is the significance of that for us?
Well, I think it reminds us that even though we have this incredible potential within us,
Yeah.
we're not meant to burn ourselves out trying to do everything at once.
Okay.
Recognizing our limits, resting, recharging, those are all essential parts of the creative process too.
It's like we have to find that rhythm of effort and rest,
Yeah.
of pouring ourselves into our work and then stepping back,
Exactly.
allowing things to unfold.
And it makes sense that even God in all his power needed to rest. It's a reminder that, realizing our potential isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It's a journey, not a destination.
Love that.
And it's a journey we embark on not alone,
Right.
but in partnership with the very source of all potential.
This whole conversation has been so thought-provoking.
Good.
I'm looking at potential in a whole new way now.
Or God.
It's not something I have to create on my own, but something I can tap into
Right.
that flows from a source much greater than myself.
I love that.
Yeah, it really makes you feel less limited. Like anything is possible.
Absolutely.
This chapter's really given me permission to dream bigger,
Good.
to believe in the unseen potential, not just in me, but in the world around me.
That's the key.
I wonder what invisible things are inside of me. What seeds of potential am I carrying?
Well, that's a question only you can answer.
Right.
But I would say think about those things that you're drawn to, your passions, your dreams, the things that make you feel most alive, connected to something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
I think those are often clues.
Okay, so I should pay attention to those whispers of inspiration.
Yes.
Those nudges from within.
Absolutely. And then it's about taking action.
Okay.
Speaking those dreams into reality through choices, effort, commitment.
Wow. This deep dive's been incredible.
Good. I'm glad.
I'm looking at potential in a whole new way.
That's what we hope for.
It's not something I have to create on my own.
Right.
It's something I can tap into.
It's already there.
That flows from a source so much greater than myself.
Yeah, I love that.
As we wrap up today, is there anything else from the chapter that really stuck with you?
There was this question at the very end that I think is worth sitting with.
Yeah. What is it?
It asks if we are part of God's ongoing creation. What invisible things are we carrying within us?
Wow.
Waiting to be made visible.
Okay.
What will we speak into existence?
That's really powerful.
It is.
It's a great note to end on.
I hope it gives you something to think about.
It does. Thank you so much for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us.
Yes. Thank you.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Bye, everyone.